Meeting adjourned. Meeting begins.
Meeting begins. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Carroll County, this is Carroll County Commissioner President Steve Wantz, and it's a pleasure to be with quite a few folks that are on here today. And it's always a pleasure to see one of Carroll County's own, Mr. Secretary Greg Slater. It's always good to see you, sir. So I'm going to turn this over to you. I just wanted to give you a welcome. We've got a couple commissioners that are going to be straggling in here that are a little bit late, but they'll be in as soon as they can. So, Greg, always good to see you.
Absolutely. Feeling is mutual. I love seeing everybody. I look forward to a time when we can get together in person again, but we'll do it in due time. But first, for the record, good afternoon. My name is Greg Slater, Secretary of Maryland Department of Transportation. And I just want to thank you, everybody on this call, for members of the delegation for having us here today to talk about our annual 6-year CTP. In an effort, of course, to practice social distancing and protect you and the residents of your county and our team. We're holding these meetings virtually this year for the first time. If at home you want to follow along, go to ctp.maryland.gov to view the current CTP. First thing I want to do is talk about a little bit about who our team is on here with us today. First of all, we have our newly appointed State Highway Administrator, Tim Smith, and our District Engineer, Terry Seuss. From the Maryland Transportation Authority, we have Planning and Program Development Director, Melissa Williams. Maryland Transit Administration, we have our local Transit Support Director, Travis Johnson. From Motor Vehicle Administration, we have our Administrator, Chrissy Nizer. And for Maryland Aviation, we have Executive Director Ricky Smith and our Regional Aviation Assistance Director, Ashish Solanki. From the Secretary's Office, we have Regional Planner Dan Janasek, our Director of Government Affairs, Jeff Tozy, and our State Legislative Officer, Pilar Helm. Let me tell you that I've worked with every one of these individuals over the course of my 20+ years at MDOT, and this team is as good as they come. So we are fortunate to have them. I come into this position very familiar with the CTP tour season after more than 20 years at MDOT, really talking about highway projects in these fall meetings. I remember I did my first CTP tour meeting as a new SHA planning director in 2008. So I have a lot of history on these projects over the years. And, frankly, we've collaborated on some, we've fought together on some, and we've worked together on a lot of these things, and we've gotten a lot done. So I come into this with a perspective where many of these local priorities I worked on from the very beginning collaboratively with you, and I believe it gives me a good perspective. But today I am humbled to be addressing you for the first time as Secretary in these really challenging times, focused on keeping our network moving during this health crisis and now the major economic downturn resulting from COVID-19. While I certainly never envisioned serving as Transportation Secretary during a financial and health crisis, the experience has only reinforced for me the critical role that transportation plays in everything that we do and the success of this state. Our network has been critical in keeping the supply chain moving and getting essential employees to work during this crisis. From day one, our goal was to protect our employees and our customers, and we continue to work hard to keep people moving and safe across the whole transportation system. This draft CTP is key in how we navigate these reduced revenues that we're seeing. The draft CTP is a direct result of drastic reductions in travel during this pandemic. I'm going to take a minute and walk you through the numbers. Comparing 2020 to the same week in 2019, you're looking at the second week of April during the peak of our stay-at-home order. Travel was down at an all-time low, while the fourth week of September is really starting to show some positive trends, some returning trends. Our highway volumes were down about 52% at the peak in April. Now we're only down 15%. So traffic is starting to come back. We're starting to see that movement spread out a little bit more. The morning peak is not quite as defined as the evening right now. And I think that has a lot to do with other people's travel patterns in schools and those types of things. Truck volumes were only down 27% in the peak, but they're down 13 now. Our toll transactions were down 57% statewide, and now they're only down 19%. Our passenger traffic at BWI Marshall Airport was down 95% at the peak. Now we're down 66%, and we are outpacing some of our competitors in the return. All transit was down 70%, which is down 60% now. Our shining star was at Port of Baltimore with our monthly container counts down about 17% at the peak. August was down 0.2%, and September, we're getting ready to announce, is actually up. So, we have a resilient Port of Baltimore. We're starting to see that commerce flowing. While the numbers are starting to come back, our current six-year CTP trust fund revenue had declines across the board at all of our funding sources. Our motor fuel tax was hit by about $636 million. Our titling tax was about $190 million reduction. Corporate income tax was $183 million in reduction. Our MTA operating revenues were down $174 million, and our MAA operating revenues were down another $146 million. And then some combined other smaller sources were down $100 million in total. So what does this mean? It means that our six-year forecast is down $1.4 billion on top of a decreased bond sale of about a $1.5 billion for a total $2.9 billion decline in the $16.3 billion CTP that we just introduced 9 months ago. So there's a pretty startling figures in what we're trying to deal with here. But this capital budget reflects about a $1.9 billion reduction in revenue and looking at cash flows and completing really some record-breaking construction over the last 5-6 years. But we're presenting a program budget today of $13.4 billion that really reflects a lot of really, really tough decisions across our business units. Every single one of our business units took a hit in this budget. The Secretary's office, we were reduced by $23 million, which is mainly capital grants, and 5% of our total operating budget. SHA's budget was hit by $900 million in capital and 7% of its operating budget. MTA, $150 million in capital and 5% of its operating budget. Over to Maryland Aviation Administration, they were hit by $522 million in capital and 8% of its operating budget. We're going to talk a little bit about that later in the program, where about $500 million of that will come back when the revenues start to rebound with some revenue bonds that we're going to issue. We just have to wait for the market to be there. Over at the Port Administration, a $227 million reduction in capital and 6% of its operating budget. And over at the MBA, $25 million in capital and 4% of its operating budget. And I can assure you that every single cut we made was done heavily focused on keeping the transportation system safe and moving and focusing on the health and well-being of our customers and our employees. But the reality is that cutting $1.9 billion in capital budget and another $100 million in operating costs has an impact that we will feel. And so, some examples of how we're going to feel that. We're going to feel that in the road maintenance world. We're going to feel that in some of the aesthetics with some of our grass cutting and those types of things. We're going to feel that in our facilities, our system preservation program. And it's important to remember that, this is on top of really billions of state of good repair work that we really needed to catch up on and really helping us prepare for some of these future projects. So looking at that, but despite the challenges, it's important to pause and note that, the more than 10,000 MDOT employees and our private sector partners showed up every single day and continued to deliver for us and provide those essential services and achieve some pretty great things across every business unit. And so I do think it's important that we highlight a few of those. We were able to complete the Bay Bridge deck rehabilitation a year early. Less traffic, good weather, getting that stuff done. We developed temporary shuttles to hospitals when we were cutting transit. We supplied logistical support for health and continued to use our maintenance crews in delivering medical equipment, PPE testing equipment. We set up our MVA beep stations for testing. We continued to conduct a huge amount of commercial driver's license testing to keep the economy moving, keep that supply chain moving. And we cut the ribbon on some big projects. We had I-270 in Watkins Mill in Montgomery County. We had the 2-4 widening in Calvert County. We had the 180 widening outside of AstraZeneca in Frederick County. And then we started construction on the Nice Middleton Bridge. So, those are just some key things that are really important for us. And I would argue that our vision for transportation hasn't changed, just the parameters around us have changed. And so when we look at these things, earlier this year when I came in as secretary, we laid out key priorities. First and foremost, we want to set the foundation and deliver big infrastructure. We have some big ones out there now. We want to make sure that they're out there and set up for future growth. We want to prioritize state of good repair, a system we can be proud of. we want to provide safe and accessible mobility for all of our users, drivers, truck drivers, transit users, pedestrians, bicyclists, and look very closely at the interplay between land use and transportation. And we want to establish this organization as a sustainable, customer-focused transportation vision that incorporates roadway, transit, freight, airport infrastructure, and the vision that will be the foundation for the CTP of future generations. But as I walk through this program a little bit, it's important that you know where we are and we're developing this budget. In our financial projections, we're seeing this as about a 2-year recovery. We looked at FY21, we wanted to stop the damage, minimize it as best we can. So we really were assessing and adjusting every step of the way, as I'm sure the county was as well. In FY22, the budget that you're seeing right here is about recovery and planning, starting to recover, but also planning for the future. And then FY23 is to continue that recovery, but also stabilize the trust fund, investments across the board, across the system. So this is a capital budget and an operating budget that we're focused on preserving what we have, planning for the future, and building what we can do to play a role in the recovery of Maryland. But what you will see is the service modes getting about, at MVA and the Secretary's office, getting about 1.4% of the capital budget and about 14% of the operating budget. The economic engines of the port and the airport are receiving about 10% of the capital budget, 11% of our operating budget. Transit across the system between MTA and WMATA is getting about 39.2% of the capital budget, 61% of our operating budget, with MTA alone accounting for 41% of our operating budget. Our state highways are taking up about 39.6% of our capital budget, 13% of our operating budget, and our local jurisdictions are receiving about 10% of the capital budget, mainly for highway user revenue grants and those types of things. At the same time, we've preserved some really key projects in this program. You know, we're able to keep the light rail vehicle overhaul and the new Metro cars at MTA. We're able to keep going on MVA's Customer Connect program that are really focused on vehicle services for our customers and businesses and government fleets. We're able to preserve the Howard Street Tunnel and our Cox Creek Dredge Placement program down at the Port of Baltimore, all critically important projects. You know, and I'm going to highlight the Port of Baltimore for a second because projects like the Howard Street Tunnel and Cox Creek Dredge Placement are important in our recovery. And I want to note that in the wake of a national economic recession, we forged this public-private partnership in 2009 with Ports America Chesapeake. It allowed us to build a 50-foot berth and bring in 4 Panamax cranes when we were cutting our program to the bone. We made investments when we were cutting everywhere else. And that built that growing container business that we see at the port, and ultimately spurred another public-private partnership with CSX on the Howard Street Tunnel to allow us to get double-stack rail coming out of there and that freight moving not on trucks, but on rail across the country. So during the pandemic, the strength of the Port of Baltimore was very clear as the port continued to receive cargo and help Maryland's supply chain keep it going. And that's just one example of the critical part that transportation plays in our society and really in our recovery as well. So we're going to keep doing that. But it's important to note that in the wake of a recovery where we were cutting things from the bone, we thought about an innovative way that is helping us recover today. So we need to think about that. I won't steal a lot of the good news from our administrators who are going to update you on some key projects. But the bottom line is this current budget is tough, and we're still making those important investments when we can in that infrastructure as we navigate through this pandemic. Before I turn it over, I want to touch a little bit on our federal assistance program. You know, while we're doing the best we can with the funding that we have, we do need some additional federal help, and we're continuing to highlight that. We're continuing to work with our federal delegation who is working hard for us every single day down there and really keeping that fight going. But we continue to need the help. And before we leave that topic, the CARES Act really kind of saved us. And so, you know, we want to keep that continued going and keep the important work that MDOT is going progressing. And so, you know, I want to take one final moment and thank our employees, whether you're keeping people moving on our highways or on our transit system, whether you're working at one of our MVA branches, one of our highways or toll facilities, on the docks of the Port of Baltimore, or throughout the Thurgood Marshall BWI Airport. Working together is how we're going to get things done. That's working together with us, our municipalities, our local governments, our federal delegation. That's what we need to do to get things done, and how we can move this vision forward, grow our economy, recover from this together, and really set the foundation for our children and our children's children. And then I'll make one announcement. That I'll announce before I turn it over to Tim Smith is I want to announce that we've preserved a couple of key projects in our Bikeways program that are really benefiting directly in Carroll County. Our Bikeways program last year was dedicated to a lady by the name of Kim Lempier, who was a strong bike advocate that we lost last year. But she, if you had not met her, she had the ability to just light up a room, and she was very passionate, and we were able to dedicate the program to her. In September, we announced about $3.7 million in grants for bike safety and access across the state. While Carroll County really didn't kind of come in, we noticed you have a couple of bike programs that are kind of on the foundation, and you're talking about that. And we just want to note that these are programs that can really benefit the county, and we'd be happy to meet with you on those. And we're going to be highlighting some of those bike and pedestrian activities through our social media pages in time to come. At this point, I'll take a pause. I'll turn it over to first start with Tim Smith over at SHA. I will take a minute to note that Tim, as well as our new SHA administrator, is also a Francis Scott Key graduate. So you have another Carroll County guy at SHA. So let me turn it over to Tim.
Good afternoon, everyone. Quick mic check. Thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, great. As Secretary Slater said, I'm Tim Smith. It's an honor to be here and a privilege to lead the State Highway team. Our team continued to work through this pandemic and made progress on projects and initiatives. And it might be more my operational experience, but I feel like MDOT and State Highway tend to shine when it comes to managing emergencies, whether that's a weather event or an incident on the roadway. I think COVID-19 has been no exception to that. As mentioned earlier, our primary goal was keeping our customers and our employees safe while delivering on our core functions. We advanced a few projects while practicing physical distancing, following proper health practices, meeting virtually, and using appropriate protective equipment. As traffic dipped below 50% of typical volumes, our maintenance staff, we switched to alternating shifts to reduce the number of workers we ever had at one location at a given time. That allowed us to keep them safe, but also continue to keep maintenance activities going at a lighter workload. As traffic came back and reached closer to expected volumes, our staff came back full time about early July with additional proper health protocols. For our construction efforts, with fewer vehicles on the roadway, that allowed our crews to kind of expand our hours on the lane closures, and we can make more progress without impacting mobility for our customers. That tactic allowed us to speed up a pace of a few projects. In other cases, it allowed us to recover from some of those that needed some help. As the Secretary mentioned, budget impacts, State Highway stayed very focused on continuing our maintenance and our construction efforts. So for some projects, we've had to delay certain phases and planning and design efforts out to later years. And we focused our operational resources on safety and mobility for our system. So as he's mentioned, that's resulted in fewer mowing cycles and litter pickup, and we've been getting that feedback from our customers. Now, the good part about supporting your active construction program is that we've been able to deliver some great projects and new roadway infrastructure in Maryland. A few great examples of that are right here in Carroll County. One is the $3.4 million intersection improvement along 27 there at Gillis Falls Road. That will be completed this fall. I know we made some progress there because I did visit the golf course near there recently. So I know we're making progress, and I might have left a few golf balls in Carroll County at that time. But thanks to our county partners for your financial contribution for that effort. We're also wrapping up a $5.9 million improvement project along Maryland 32 from Main Street to Macbeth Way in Eldersburg. That includes an interest in the National Guard's New Freedom Readiness Center. And also we're pleased to announce that the $35 million Hampstead Street project that will be completed by the end of this year if the weather cooperates with us. And we're happy to report that we added a half-mile north on that from the original project limits. So I mentioned all those construction projects, but I also want to kind of take a minute to talk about safety. When we have folks out on the roadway, that always puts them in kind of harm's way. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our work zone safety as well as our Maryland Move Over law efforts. So even while traffic was down earlier this year, we still had quite a few of our incidents in our work zones. And we've had equipment, even members of our team struck while assisting disabled vehicles, and performing construction and maintenance activities. Probably the worst example of that was a couple weeks into this new role for me. One of our contractor partners had an employee struck, and they lost their life. So I guess I'm just requesting your support with education and laws to protect our workers so they can return home each night and we can continue to deliver great projects for Maryland. So in closing, as Greg mentioned, we're actively working to kind of plan and stabilize our financial future. For State Highway, that kind of means building a shelf of projects that's in three main areas, and that's asset management, accessibility, and mobility. From an asset management perspective, that means using the system preservation philosophy to think long-term about day-to-day decisions while seeking to gain the best return on investment to ensure a sound transportation infrastructure for the next generation. Accessibility has a huge safety component to it, but it's also more about consideration for all users of the system, whether that's pedestrian, bike, scooter, vehicles, all need appropriate access to life's opportunities. And I really feel like our context guide will change the way we deliver projects, and a Vision Zero philosophy will aid in making our roadways even safer. Mobility is about taking advantage of the technology and kind of data-driven systems to improve the efficiency of our existing roadway footprint. And we're looking at ways we can use data, smart devices, and technology to more efficiently build projects that we can deliver in the future. So thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to my MDOT teammate over at the Transportation Authority, Melissa Williams.
Hey, thank you, Tim. Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. MDTA has maintained operations, completed Bay Bridge projects, and advanced other initiatives during COVID-19. With reduced revenue, we changed some operations and delayed some work. All electronic or cashless tolling has been in place statewide since March 17th to limit the contact for the traveling public as well as for our toll collectors. After closing in March, we reopened the E-ZPass customer service centers on June 15th with limited capacity and safety precautions in place. Some of the key MDTA accomplishments during COVID-19 include completing work to reopen the Bay Bridge westbound right lane and install a new tolling gantry and deliver full-time all-electronic tolling in advance of our summer goal. Advanced major projects include the I-895 bridge project in Baltimore and the new Nice Middleton Bridge in Southern Maryland. We work to develop the Drive Easy MD toll modernization, which includes new payment options such as pay-by-plate and early payment notice of toll due discount, a new website that will go live later this year, and we reduced civil penalties from not $50 to $25 for toll violations. Additional features such as new vehicle toll classifications with lower toll rates will roll out in phases once the new tolling system goes live. Reductions to the MDTA budget due to COVID-19 means that projects need to be deferred. The I-95 Express Toll Lanes project has been deferred by 1 year, and cash flows for the Nice Middleton Bridge replacement have been reduced in the draft FY 2021 to FY 2026 CTP. The project completed more work in fiscal year 2020 than originally forecasted. Therefore, the budget is the same, the cash flow has just changed. MDTA additional major projects preserved include the Bay Crossing Tier 1 NEPA study. We anticipate publishing the Tier 1 draft environmental impact statement and identifying MDTA's recommended preferred corridor alternative in the fall of 2020 and holding public hearings in early 2021. The Tier 1 final environmental impact statement and record of decision is scheduled for 2021. If you would like more information about that project, please visit www.baycrossingstudy.com. Thank you very much for your time, and I would like to turn it over to MTA, to Travis Johnson, the Local Transit Support Director. Thank you.
Travis is muted.
Travis, unmute.
You're muted, Travis. There you
My
go.
apologies, guys. Sorry about that. Travis Johnston, Director, Office of Local Transit Support, here to talk about MTA. So MDOT MTA is one of the largest multimodal transit systems in the United States. We operate local bus, the commuter bus network, as well as light rail link, metro subway link, MARC train service, and a comprehensive mobility paratransit system. Additionally, we support our 22 locally operated transit systems. Our agency's goal is to provide safe, efficient, and reliable transit across Maryland with world-class customer service. COVID-19 has resulted in a major decline in Marylanders' use of transportation services across the state. For example, MDOT MTA began seeing dramatic decreases in ridership starting in mid-March, which resulted in reductions to MDOT MTA fare revenues. As the Secretary mentioned, the second week of April, during the peak of the stay-at-home order, all transit was down at an all-time low, while the fourth week of September shows our latest trends of a return. For our MARC bus, which was down to 97% reduction, is now at 89%. Our commuter bus, which was down to 95%, is now at 87%. And our core local bus, which was at 61%, is now down to 51%, unfortunately. Throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, MDOT MTA focused on cleaning, awareness, and overall safety of employees and the public, and is repositioning our services to focus on the core mission and the greatest areas of need. Some of MDOT MTA's key accomplishments during COVID-19 was really our ability to receive the CARES Fund, the federal CARES apportionment. And as that relates to Carroll County, we were able to secure $5.1 million in federal CARES funds to support your operation and or capital needs of transit in the county. Reductions to the Transportation Trust Fund due to COVID-19 unfortunately means that our LOTS transit operations will need to be cut back, or at least the funding. And again, that's really due to the sharp decline in our transportation revenues. State matching funds for local transits are just not available this year in the CTP. MDOT MTA will be coordinating closely with our locally operated transit systems to discuss the availability of local matching funds and to apply those very needed CARES funds to any of their operations or capital needs as it relates to their local transit system. So we are right now in the process of identifying FY21 awards. However, they will not have state match this year, but we will be getting those federal awards confirmed here in the next couple weeks. Some key MDOT initiatives. So MDOT MTA is currently undertaking a 50-year statewide transit plan, and we really look forward working with Carroll County and the stakeholders in the county and across the state to help develop this long-term vision and framework for coordinated transit service in Maryland. And lastly, I would just like to thank Carroll County's transit staff for their continued partnership and patience as we work through the pandemic and all of the obstacles that we continue to encounter. I really want to thank you guys. With that, I want to thank everyone else for their time, and I will now turn it over to my partner at MDOT, MVA, Chrissy Nizer.
Thanks, Travis. I appreciate that, and glad to be with you all today, even if it's just virtually and not in person. At MDOT MVA, even during the pandemic, we continued to focus on delivering that premier customer service and making sure we're meeting the needs of our customers. Even though our branch offices were closed for several months, our MDOT MVA employees were still busy at work, fulfilling requests that came in through the mail or over the internet. And we also made sure that we were providing critical services to our commercial driver's license holders stakeholders. Obviously, they are critical to keeping the economy going in the supply chain. And so we established an email address and a phone number that they could reach out to with their needs, as well as our businesses. We're also excited we now have the ability for our commercial drivers to do many services online, like renew their driver's license, get a duplicate or corrected license. And we implemented all that during the COVID emergency period. It's exciting to say that during the COVID-19 closures, we actually still processed 740,000 transactions. And it just shows how much our e-services have grown over time. We did reopen 17 branch offices on June 8th, and that was by appointment only at reduced capacity, obviously to keep everybody safe. The remaining branch offices open on July 20th. It will look a little bit different if you come to a branch office. Obviously, we're requesting everybody wear the face covering, and we'll ask a few health screening questions before you enter the facility. We also will take your temperature to make sure you don't have a fever and are safe to enter. You will notice plexiglass that's installed at all of our customer-facing areas. That's obviously to keep our agents safe as well as the customers. We have social distancing stickers, and we've also made some modifications to our core services. So for the driver skills test, traditionally our examiner was in the car with the applicant. We've modified the test so it's completely on the course at MBA, and the examiner is actually outside of the car observing and scoring that test. We also, for the first time, have allocated for driver education the classroom portion to be done online, and that allows our individuals who are trying to get that license to still complete the requirement and do it safely. As Secretary Slater mentioned, we were excited to deploy Customer Connect on July 6th. That's the first phase of our IT modernization project. It's really about delivering more services and being more efficient for our customers. Phase 1 included vehicle services, business licensing, and motor carrier. And one of the things that we're excited about is that increase in online services. So I just want to mention a few that are now available to your constituents. They can now update their insurance information or provide documents or information related to insurance, and obviously pay any fees that they owe. They also can request a disability product online, so a placard or a plate, and their doctor can actually sign off on that right online. They never have to come to a branch office, and that gets mailed off to them. And the third thing makes it a little bit easier to do a titling and registration transaction. That's a very confusing transaction, could be a little bit long. So we walk you through the process of what documents you need, tell you approximately what fees you'll owe. And because you pre-populate all that information before you come to the branch office, it really saves a lot of time when you do get to the branch, and also just make sure you have the documents you need. And one thing that we just deployed this week as a new feature is called First Stop. You'll see it right in the front of our website. All you have to do is enter your driver's license or vehicle information, and we'll tell you exactly what online services are available for you. So again, all of this is just about making it more convenient, make it easier for the customers. We want them to think about online services first before they think about making that appointment for the branch office. Obviously, with the decrease in revenue, like the other business units, we had to adjust our operations and defer some key projects. That included modifications to our MBA facilities, as well as some smaller IT projects. But despite those challenges, we're really excited that phase 2 of Customer Connect will still move forward. That is scheduled to be deployed in December of 2021, and that'll be our driver system. And so that'll give us the complete 360 view of the customer, and really the even better ability to deliver more convenient services, whether it's online or self-service. And so we're really excited about that. Another big initiative we've been working on is Real ID. The deadline would have been today, actually, but the federal government luckily decided to push that back a year. So now we have till October 1 of 2021. Despite the fact that the deadline got pushed back, I will say Maryland's doing really well. We're currently over 70% compliant. DHS has released the national rate as of last month at 38%, so certainly considerably better than that. But we're glad it gives people a little bit of relief and more time to be able to add those documents to their record. We're also squarely focused on highway safety and what we can do to reach that goal of 0 fatalities. We're excited that Governor Hogan recently announced more than $300,000 for Carroll County agencies to address highway safety. That includes the Sheriff's Association, Chiefs of Police Association, Carroll County Sheriff's Office and Health Department, and police departments in Sykesville, Mount Airy, Hampstead, Westminster, and Taneytown. We're also launching this month our Be the Driver campaign, and that's all about personal responsibility each of us have when we're behind the wheel. We're currently updating our highway safety plan. That's a statewide plan, and that'll be for 2021 through 2025. That will incorporate that Vision Zero, zero deaths by 2030 goal that we have as a statewide goal. I really want to commend Carroll County for taking out that mantra of developing your own local strategic highway safety plan. I know we've talked about that in prior years, and you guys are doing a great job. I love to see how you're bringing all the partners together and making sure it's really a comprehensive plan. So I applaud your efforts there, and I truly believe it will make a difference in reducing fatalities in the coming year. So we're committed to continuing to work together to find the best solutions, whether it's from customer service or highway safety. It really is all about our employees and our customers. And I just want to end by really commending our employees. They really have been on the front line this entire time, continuing to serve the Maryland residents and really dedicated to do so. You know, they're so committed to that mission that we have, and I'm so proud of each and every one of them. So just want to say thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Ricky Smith to talk about the great things that are happening over at MAA.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Can everyone hear me? Great. Good afternoon, commissioners, other representatives of the county on this call. I look forward to talking with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide an update on what's going on with the Maryland Aviation Administration. You know, like airports across the nation, BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport has seen reduced passenger and airline activity since the early spring. While passenger traffic remained well below typical summer, BWI Marshall has experienced some improving numbers over the recent weeks. April, for example, was the low point for passenger traffic, with passenger traffic dropping 96%. We've never experienced that before. No one has experienced that before. But we did see some airline and passenger traffic return over the summer. For July, BWI Marshall passenger traffic was 51% of the entire Washington area. For the second straight month, the total passenger level at BWI Marshall was more than Reagan National and Dulles Airport combined, with normally around 36, 37% of the market. So to be more traffic than them combined, over 51% is pretty significant. It speaks to how well BWI is recovering and how resilient we are during this pandemic. For the Labor Day weekend, TSA performed 15,125 screenings in just one day at BWI Marshall. Checkpoints, this was the highest count in nearly 6 months. The aviation industry expects at least a 2 to 3 year period before we regain pre-COVID traffic levels. Though BWI Marshall remains well positioned for when the industry begins to return, we're still very cautious of the challenges that we're facing. At the same time, BWI Marshall has continued to see increasing cargo activity, which has been a bright spot in the midst of this very nasty pandemic. Amazon is leading that way as they operate out of their new 200,000 square foot aviation processing facility. As with Secretary Slater and others have mentioned, you know, I have to take the opportunity to acknowledge the MAA team and our airport partners for working so hard throughout the pandemic to maintain critical operations on behalf of our customers. I've never been prouder of a team, an aviation team, than I am with this group of professionals. I mean, they showed resilience and dedication and commitment and courage throughout this pandemic to make sure that not just airport customers, but their coworkers were all safe and could enjoy the benefits of our airport system. We continue to utilize enhanced cleaning and sanitation procedures to help ensure a safe, healthy airport for customers and employees. The airport, the TSA, and our airline partners installed protective shields at document check-in stations, ticket counters, and information desks. We provide hand sanitizer stations throughout the terminal, our rental car facility, including Martin State Airport. This has been a rather popular feature at those facilities. Passengers and employees are required to wear face coverings or masks throughout our airport facilities. We acted swiftly in the spring to provide rent relief to airlines and concessions in order to maintain customer amenities and jobs. We see them as partners to the airport ecosystem. And so we approached our relief plans with them accordingly. Currently, about 52% of our food and retail concessions are open to serve travelers. Back in April, about 80% of them were closed. And so we're seeing steady progress with the return of those airport partners. The Federal CARES Act allocated $87 million to help fund BWI Marshall and Martin State Airport operations, helping to offset revenue loss. Moving on to reductions that we experienced due to the impacts on the trust fund, the draft CTP reflects a temporary pause on some major work for BWI Marshall, primarily related to the expansive Concourse AB and baggage handling system project. That construction work, originally planned to start over the summer, was slowed while the industry continues to recover. The large-scale project will support further domestic and international growth with Southwest Airlines, our hub carrier, the largest carrier at BWI Marshall. This project will be largely funded by airport revenue bonds, as Secretary Slater mentioned earlier. The work is paused, however, until the market for these bonds has stabilized. If I can just talk a little bit about projects that were preserved, a number of key projects were preserved in the CTP. These projects include important work on near-term needs, particularly related to safety. M.MAA will continue to support and foster aviation across Maryland by working with our 35 public use airports in the state. For fiscal year 2021, M.MAA intends to provide $2.3 million in state support for regional airports across Maryland. I want to thank Secretary Slater for that. That actually comes out of his budget, the Secretary Office's budget. Thank you very much. Carroll County Regional Airport has received 100% fiscal year 2021 federal grant assistance of $232,000 for runway extension design work, which is important for that airport's future. There are several airfield projects at BWI Marshall that will move forward, including a major reconstruction of Taxiway T, which is the primary aircraft circulation route around the terminal. This project will be fully funded by the federal government with more than $11 million in CARES Act funds. The 5-gate extension of Concourse A is nearing completion. Our work is basically done. However, the concessionaires continue to work to build out their respective spaces, and we're hoping that that will be completed in time for an open in earnest about a month from now. We continue to work with the FAA on the extensive environmental assessment process for the next phase of improvements at BWI Marshall and Martin State Airport. You know, the EA, the environmental assessment for BWI in particular, is one that we're proud of. The FAA allowed us to be a pilot for a virtual public input session, which is required with the environmental assessment. We were the first airport in the country to do this, and I'm happy to say that we got very good feedback, very active participation from the public during this virtual process. We thought it worked very well. The FAA thought it worked very well, and they're holding it out as a model that they will begin to allow other airports to do across the country. We are finalizing the design process for a major terminal restroom innovation program, and we expect to begin construction in early 2021. Replacement snow removal equipment and airfield vehicles will continue to be procured as well. So we know that the national and the global airline and passenger traffic will rebound. We know it will, it always does. And across M.MAA, we're working to be prepared when the industry recovers. With that, I will turn it back over to Secretary Slater.
Thank you, Ricky, and thank you to the whole MDOT team for those presentations. But let me take a minute and thank you, Commissioner Wantz, members of the commission, for having us here today to talk about the 6-year budget. You know, at this point, I'll turn it back over to you, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And all those reports, I got to tell you, they give us some uplifting thoughts there, because it sounds as if everything seems to be coming back. Not albeit at the rate that we'd like it, maybe, but it's good to see the uptick everywhere, including the airport. That's very good news. So thank you. I'm surrounded by a ton of staff here today, so I'll open it up to see if anybody, including my colleagues or any of my staff that's on here, have any questions for you or your team.
I'd like to thank the Gillis Falls project for moving forward and getting ready to wrap up. Also like to thank, I believe it was Tim Smith that mentioned the road crew safety. That's vitally important. It's tragic to hear about someone passing away. Our media representative here, Chris Swam, just recently posted up a road safety photo of our crew and emphasizing road safety as well. So we're very much aware of that issue going around. So I'm glad that at the state level they're pushing as well. So thank you very much.
Critically important message. Thank you for raising it as well. I know Tim is very passionate about it. I can tell you that, you know, my couple of years as state highway administrator, that's not a phone call that you want. And you know, so many people are just not aware of the expansions in the move over law that require people to get over if you can. And you know, we have our folks working on the side of the road, but critically important message for us because we want everybody to get home safe.
Thank you.
Sir, one thing, last week, a meeting with Terry Hughes and her team focused on Liberty Road, Highway 26. It was a very, I believe, very good discussion, very healthy discussion. I shared with her and others the importance of looking at the community that, you know, resides on these roads. And some of that community, especially on 26, has to do with the elderly. So they may not have the same throughput in numbers that we look at if it's consistent with having a certain, you know, highway modification or road modification like a light or something, but the importance of looking at these communities and young drivers around the high schools and seniors do not have either the experience or the reflexes as others that may. So we had a good conversation about that, very healthy conversation, because I am looking at modifications on 26 that may not warrant because of the numbers, but because of the safety, it's an important aspect. And then the other is understanding that 26 Liberty Road is a real cross between a community road and activity happening in Eldersburg and also a regional line of communication between Baltimore City and Frederick. So, you know, we got to balance that because we want to keep our culture and our community intact here in Carroll County while we want to maintain the importance of Liberty Road going from Baltimore all the way out to Frederick. And that is a tough balance to play with. So those are the things that I'm kind of thinking through is how can we modify the road while keeping it clean and accessible and not look overcrowded in the community sense, but then also modify it, importantly for the safety part of it, especially if the numbers don't warrant it. So just want you putting that bug in your ear to think through that, because I'm sure there's other communities like that that we have to deal with. So I'll leave it at that, sir.
Absolutely, Commissioner. I couldn't agree with you more. And you know, Liberty Road is a great example of a roadway that, you know, is so many different kind of looks and feels throughout the whole corridor. You know, you have some parts of it that are developed where over the years we've had some pretty significant pedestrian safety issues. And then we've had to look at, you know, the more rural part of the corridor, which is kind of somewhat wide open and windy where we've had other challenges. But, you know, I personally, my personal philosophy is that our roadway or our bridge or our transit line, that cannot be the centerpiece of what we're doing. Our community has to be the centerpiece of what we're doing. And we have to develop the transportation element to facilitate that community. So I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, of course, we'd be happy to work with you on that, looking at the context there and what best fits that area.
Yeah, I appreciate it. There are a couple senior areas in Eldersburg that I'm very concerned about, especially with their safety coming right onto Liberty Road. So thanks.
We have a growing aging population right now that we have to accommodate.
I think that one is at the end of his driveway, but one major concern. But I want to take just a moment. I was informed the sidewalks in Hampstead are finished at the present time, and this Saturday they are doing a Main Street walk, inviting people to come in and meet in the middle of town at the War Memorial and walk the new streets of Hampstead, stop at stores, hopefully buy something. Thank them for putting up with everything we have for the last several years. And I want to say thank you, gentlemen, ladies, that have helped in this project. A few years ago, I think I got crucified at the Hampstead Fire Department, and now that's over and done, and now we're moving ahead, and we have a much better looking streetscape in Hampstead. So thank you for all your help, and I hope to see most of you Saturday. If you show up in the middle of town at noon, I'll buy you lunch.
Perfect. I think, Commissioner, just before we leave that Hampstead project, I think that's a great example that we can all cite on one, how to work together to solve issues, and two, how to be nimble enough to redirect things once things get started, because that's a great example of a project that we worked on for many years, got out there, and then really found some challenges once we started to implement stuff, and we needed to be nimble enough to shift them some things, and we did that very thing, and I think it turned out to be a real success.
Mr. Secretary, I'd like to chime in here. First, I'd like to thank you and Ricky Smith for the money coming to our airport for the design and process. This is for safety enhancement of the airport to lengthen the runway so that planes can take off and land when they're fully loaded and when weather's not ideal. And everything's moving forward fantastic, and I appreciate that because we would like to see this move as quickly as possible so we can have more planes coming in and out of our own airport. So I do appreciate that. Also want to thank Travis for the $5.1 million of CARES money that they came in for our transit system. Without that, I don't know what we would have done, because our transit, I mean, you guys had like a 97% drop. I think ours was almost like a 100% drop in ridership. We have people, routes are back up and running now, and that's really great. But again, nowhere near what they were before. So that money really, really did help us out. But I also want to put the bug in the ear about additional buses, because just when this whole thing was starting, our system was picking up. We're getting more ridership, but then COVID came and then it just knocked all that down. But we just like to have looking for more buses so we have our wait times at our stops to be a little bit less than what they are, so ridership can continue to expand. That's what I'm looking for, and I do appreciate all the help. That, like I said, without that $5.1 million of the CARES money, I don't know what we would have done here. I mean, that really, really helped with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to let you know, the CARES funds may be used for capital, and we do have existing bus contracts, specifically the buses that you guys use, available and ready. So we're actually getting ready to do our next call for CARES projects. We'll have another opportunity to ask for buses using that CARES funds. And in addition to that, we did offer, or at least recommend, a couple of more buses for you guys using your traditional federal awards. Right. And that you have to come up with the extra match, though, the 20% instead of 10. So I'm glad you do have some options available to you, and we certainly will continue to work with the county to try and meet your needs as quickly as we can.
I appreciate everything you've done for us, Travis. I really do. It does really help us a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're happy we could help.
Thank you. Also want to mention one other thing, if I can, about sidewalks. We've mentioned this before because we're talking about safety around streets and so forth. We're putting funds into sidewalks. We're looking at safe schools and so forth to put sidewalks around schools and that. But any additional help we can get with sidewalks would really, really be helpful, because a lot of the communities out here in Carroll County, when the developers built them, they didn't put sidewalks in. I don't know how that was out, but it was. Anyway, so we have to go back and we have to try to retrofit that, and that's what we're doing. And it's all about safety. So I appreciate any help you can do for that. And with that, I'll end and say thank you for everything you've done for us in the past. Again, especially Lost 97 when you had those build out projects there, because I have to say this again, I'm amazed at how much better the traffic is on 97 now. And because when we're talking about the projects, I'm thinking, okay, it's a good start, but how much is it really going to help? It has really, really helped. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, thank you. I couldn't agree more on the sidewalks. I think, it's a program that we'd like to do a little bit more of in the state. Just a matter of finding resources. I'd welcome the opportunity to kind of collaborate a little bit when the county's out there doing one of your roads. and we have an opportunity to kind of close the gap. There are a number of programs there. Frankly, the people that we all serve, they don't know and they don't care whether they're on a state road or a county road or a state road or a sidewalk or a county sidewalk. But that 97 project was a great example of county-state collaboration. We worked together very closely. County even put up some money for that one and worked together and we were able to get that done. And I'm really glad it's turning out to be a success. I know Commissioner Wance and I worked on that one for a little bit together.
Yeah, just a little bit, Mr. Secretary. Yeah, so it's good stuff out there. We've got a ton of our staff on here. I think I saw our Director of Planning pop up. Linda Eisenberg. Linda, did you have something when you came up there earlier?
No, thank you to Greg Slater's team. We've been working very closely with Tara Penders, Lisa Sirota, and Terry Seuss on that Maryland 26 project, which was really wonderful and so valuable to the county. And we look forward to working with them on some access management plans that we're hoping to put forward based on the recommendations for 26 and 32. So I just wanted to echo what Commissioner Rothstein said, and thank you so much for all the work that you all have done with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Linda. They're a great team over there. I feel like you and I have been working together on these things for about 20 years now. So good to see you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anybody else. Greg, I did have a couple constituents reach out to me in reference to, and this is going to go to maybe Melissa, I don't know, but on the backlog when it comes to tags on vehicles, is there indeed a backlog there? And if it is, what's the ETA of trying to get back on track there? Or Chrissy, I'm sorry, not Melissa, Chrissy. Where we are with that, Apparently, a couple of constituents that reached out to me, Chrissy, said that like 30 to 40 days behind or something like that. Is that indeed correct, or where are we with that?
Sure. So we are a little bit further behind on mail-in work, if that's specifically what they're referring to. We did, as I said, implement that new system in July. More people are mailing in work than have ever done so before. We do have vehicle appointments available within a week. So if they want to come in and process dealer work or title work in person, they can do that pretty regularly. But you're right, titling work is about 30 days out. Certainly if you have particular constituents, feel free to send them to me and I'm happy to research exactly where that is and see if we can expedite it for them. Okay, thanks.
It was a couple folks that reached out to me, and they both were very kind by saying, look, we do understand the challenges as it results to the COVID situation that we're in. So I think it was more of a question of, if you know anything, let us know. So I appreciate that info, and I'll reach back out to them. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
From personal experience, in the last couple of weeks, we were told 3 to 4 weeks, 2 weeks tops, and they really went out of their way, did a great job of getting tags to you. I don't think the wait's near as bad as maybe we're being told, but I'm sure you have to look for the worst, anticipate the worst, and hope for the best. And the best is coming through. So just want.
Yeah, everybody's been very patient. It was it's very challenging during any time to implement a new IT system, but certainly during a pandemic, that was a even more challenging situation. But I'll just say that the general public has been very understanding. Our agents are doing the very best they can. We obviously were not set up as a mail intake center. We're quickly evolving and adjusting in this new world that we're all in, and trying to make sure we get back to people as quickly as possible. But again, if anybody has a constituent, I know there's some cases where you need that title turned around more quickly because they're selling the vehicle or something comes up, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help with any of those situations.
So my daughter had an appointment out at the Westminster MVA, Chrissy, and they took her 20 minutes early and she was out in 5.
That's great to hear. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the mandatory appointment system. It's been a really smooth process for everybody. So the customers seem to really enjoy it.
Yeah, excellent.
So, Commissioner, I'll take this opportunity to plug a little bit that I personally love the MVA in an all-appointment environment like that, even outside of a pandemic. I think it changes the tone of an MVA. It changes everything when you're really trying to, you're managing the appointments. It's just the challenge that we had was, how to manage those kind of last-minute thinkers, the people that wait till the last minute to get something done. I think that's a problem we're actively thinking about, but Chrissy's got a great team over there. And I just think the MBA in an all appointment type of an environment, when you can guarantee someone you'll see them within 15 minutes of an appointment, people can plan their days around that, and you can build processes in place to protect those last minute kind of issues so you don't have them. I just think it's the future of the MBA.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's
sir,
a great point, Greg. Go ahead, Ed.
Personally, I agree with that. It took me 10 minutes for real ID. Had all the paperwork. They told me what to do. Walked in Westminster. I was done. One project I want to highlight, I don't believe you highlighted, and significant, is the work that you're doing on 32 Johnsville and Bennett, the light there. And that is a very significant, and it's a response to the community outreach. And that's important, that we're looking at projects, but we're really focused on the community and the concerns of the community. And that blind intersection there coming off of Johnsville is pretty dangerous, and also the right turn onto Bennett off of 32. And you all are working it. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the effort being done there. I live, a mile from there, so I'm seeing it all the time. And that's going to make a big difference in the commute of folks coming on and off of 32. So just another good project you guys are working.
I know our new district engineer out there, Terry Seuss, has been around that district for a while, and she does a great job. So, she'll keep those big ones moving for us.
Yeah, I agree. She's very responsive, rock star with her and her team. The meeting we had last week, I thought was very valuable. So thanks.
Good deal. I see Terry popped on for a second. Terry, the one at the Readiness Center is really moving along too, isn't it?
Correct, Greg. We are in final paving. That should be done within the next couple of weeks.
That's great.
Yeah, that area is, you guys are doing a yeoman's job down there. Thank you so much, Terry. That's good stuff going down there. Very impressive. I don't know if there's any other electeds on. I don't know if any of our mayors of any of our 8 municipalities were able to join us this afternoon. I'll give a shout out to them to see if anybody has anything in any of our 8 towns.
Yeah, I'm here. Mayor Shaw's here, so I definitely would like to comment. If you get a minute.
Yeah, Mayor Shaw from Sykesville. Always a pleasure and entertaining to talk to Mayor Shaw.
There you go. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having the CTP, and thank you, Secretary Slater, for, you do have a great staff. I will say that. And we've worked with Terry, obviously, a lot, and she's fantastic to work with. And so, as you know, I'm on here because I've been talking to you about the stuff going down on 851. So that's my concern today. And listening to your vision and some of the stuff, I think really this project, and I know it's going to be tough, but, hopefully you'll give some thought to, we gave up on our streetscape money, right? We knew that times were tough and before even the pandemic. So we kind of gave up on securing those funds, millions of dollars, because it was difficult. And then of course, here comes the pandemic. But the project with the stormwater and stuff, I really think falls into some of your criteria of system preservation and then, maintenance of what we've already got, because we're always worried about this thing opening up and just causing secondary issues. We got a new piece of property that's getting ready to transfer right on the corner there now of Springfield and Spout Hill, right where part of our main issue is. That property's getting ready to turn over and looks like it's going to be developed into something more intense. And so for us locally, it's just so important to keep this, please. I don't know if we can get some more because it seems like we talk about it, but then we're not getting any traction on moving forward. We're again willing to help out. I know this was kind of already in planning, so I hope this isn't going to be one of the things that gets shut down. So I'm just asking for your help and trying to find whatever you can in system dollars to get that project moving for us and keep it moving. Because now it's like there's no better time, really. And putting it off is just going to make things worse. And we're working with the county. There's a big pipe going right through there, that big pipe that is unidentified. So they're coming in to do their stuff, and we're trying to coordinate this stuff. So I don't want to hold up everybody's time, but it's just so important to us. And then one other quick thing I'll throw up, and I know this falls into, maybe it doesn't fit the guidelines, but do we get flexibility? And this was the stop sign, and I talked to Terry about this as well, as perhaps like a four-way stop there at Oklahoma Avenue and 851, just because I know it doesn't always, like, they do all these criteria tests, but it's Main Street, you know what I mean? And do we have to always follow the criteria test for a stop sign on how many cars are coming through? It's such a blind intersection there, and everybody I've talked to thinks the four-way stop would fix it. So something we're looking for some flexibility on, help slow cars down a little bit right at a busy intersection of Main Street where we get a lot of foot traffic anyway. So I know it's going to take a little outside of the box thinking, you know, but we've been patient on the grass cutting. You know, we were almost getting ready to cut the grass for you at the top, and we understood, you know, so thank you. But they popped up, you know, we made a call, you guys popped up and came out and cut it. So thank you. And I want to thank your team all across the state. It is a really good team, and I'm always so happy to come back to BWI from some of the places we travel to. I'm like, God, their airports are awful, you know. And then when I come back home, I'm like, man, this place is nice, you know. So thank you, and thank you for your team, and just anything you can do to help us keep that project moving and get some traction. I would really appreciate it. So thank you.
Absolutely, Mayor Sherrill. Thank you for sharing that. I know I agree. Our team is really great. I've worked with many of them for years. The Sykesville projects, you know, it's certainly, you know, the important thing right now, especially in our budget, is to just keep having the conversation and keep it on the forefront of our thoughts as we're trying to make decisions. You know, the one thing we have with this budget is a lot of uncertainty. So we're really thinking about, you know, if it starts to recover, if the money starts to come back faster than we envision, we want to make sure we're prepared to kind of invest it the right way. So just keeping those conversations at the forefront. You know, I know Tim and Terry are on here as well, but the one thing I'll note about the guidelines on the flexibility side is, you know, I think we try and look at things from a couple of different perspectives, but a lot of those guidelines, some of those guidelines are really on the federal law side and don't give us a lot of flexibility. And you know, so they give us some exposure on the legal side. So, you know, if we step out of the federal law, legal side and then say, okay, we're going to put something here or put something there that's outside of that, and something happens, we get exposed legally. So the way we find flexibility is to try and look at things from a couple of different perspectives, and try and find creative solutions that are within those guidelines. And so maybe Tim and Terry want to add something to that.
Yeah, I'll just add about the 851 work is that's part of the reason why we're having CTP tours, is to kind of give that feedback. We were progressing through with design with Terry's team. We put it on pause just to kind of gather feedback because as Greg says, we've made some tough decisions and we're no longer separating needs from wants. We're kind of ranking our needs and trying to make the best decisions with the needs we have. And then, like I said, this is a great collaboration. We're trying to get everyone's feedback before making a final decision. And then with regard to the stop sign, would more than welcome to have additional discussion, but I guess we can be creative and flexible. But I guess that's also, we're asking for your ability to be creative and flexible on your side. Sometimes when we start with a solution, it's tough to then end with that, like Greg was mentioning with some of our federal regulations. But if our intent is for safety and maybe slow traffic down, there might be other ways we can do that with other solutions that would be well within our ability to do. So I guess that's what we're asking, is flexibility on both sides to kind of achieve a means through an end. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we looked at some different like roadway designs, but some of them just didn't seem to really fit right for the location, you know. And so whatever we can do to at least take another look at it. I know Terry had mentioned maybe taking a look at it and with your team and seeing if there's any, you know, there's any options for. We really think a stop sign will fix it because it's just such a weird corner to where people can't see around. So cars come out and then they pull way far out onto 851 from Oklahoma trying, and then with parking and the reconfiguring, it just didn't seem to be a good fit. But just, I appreciate you taking another look at it. At least we can keep vetting it out and see if the stop signs can be just ruled in or out. You know.
Totally understand.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other mayors or electeds on?
4 people that have called in.
Okay, I've got some folks that called in. How about anybody that called in? Want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity here before we sign out.
Hearing none.
Okay, I'm not hearing any additional, Mr. Secretary. So on that note, I guess we'll wrap it up by just saying, look, it's all been said, but you know how we truly appreciate the collaboration between all of your departments, all of your agencies, all of your folks. Everybody there is top notch. There's no question about it. And you all do a tremendous job, and we truly do appreciate it. So thank you so very much. We appreciate all of you taking the time today to give us the updates. And I agree with Mayor Shaw. Man, it's good to come back into BWI because there's a lot of crappy airports out there. I'll leave it at that. Maybe if Ricky's still on, that's a valid point. Maybe not the best way to say it, but a valid point.
I am here. I mean, I'm writing all these compliments down. I haven't heard from Commissioner Rothstein yet, though.
I am always here for you, sir, always.
I know you are, my friend.
I want to add that I'm very proud of Chrissy Nizer. She's doing a wonderful job, and I think she must have discovered a fountain of youth because she don't age at all. And thanks for everyone on your staff. Secretary Slater, I think we got some good connections with your department. Lots of great people, and the feedback you give us is wonderful. The communication, interaction is very helpful for us as publicly elected officials to execute our job. So keep up the good job, and we're very proud of everyone. Thank you.
And Greg, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I look forward to a time when we can all see each other in person soon.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you all so very much. Our best to your family as well, Greg. As being a Carroll County guy, we always want to put that in there as well. So thank you, everybody, and stay safe out there. And we'll see everybody soon, hopefully in person.
Have a good one.
Yep.